I had worked abroad for many years and I came back to Australia and I worked as a wholesale agent for 5 years here. And it felt like the natural progression for me. So after many years of working with retailers, I decided to become a retailer. And I felt that the experience that I had had would help me carve a future in retailing. And to be honest with you, I think it really did. And I still believe that many of the principles from wholesaling to retailing, which is quite an unusual shift, it often happens the other way around, has stuck with me and is incremental in the way that I think about things.
Hello and welcome. I'm Elizabeth Formosa, the founder of Fashion Equipped and devourer of all things fashion, business and mindset. In this podcast, I'm speaking with thought leaders, change makers and entrepreneurs about the business side of fashion and everything in between. Fashion Business Mindset is your front row seat to real stories from designers, brands, entrepreneurs, makers and mentors. We'll discuss how to launch and grow a fashion business and give you insider access to the future of fashion. So let's do this together and ensure that you're equipped to make the fashion business your business. Welcome back to Fashion Business Mindset. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to share something with you. As we approach a new financial year, this is a great time to pause, reflect, and start fine-tuning your direction for FY26 and start thinking ahead to 2027. So if you've been craving some support and guidance to map out the next phase for your business, this could be the perfect time. I work closely with fashion founders, leaders, and their teams through my fashion business growth roadmap consulting, helping to bring more clarity, alignment, and momentum to their next stage of growth. My next availability will open up from September, so if you'd like to explore working together, head to fashionequipped.com.au to find out more, and you can book a clarity call with me. I will drop the link in the show notes so you can find that easily. Now, let's get into today's episode. My guest today is Eva Galambos. She's the founder and director of Parlour X, Australia's leading luxury fashion boutique, renowned for its exclusive curation of the world's most sought-after designer collections. After a career in London and Sydney as a commercial fashion agent, Eva launched Parlour X in 2001 in Sydney, and she quickly became one of Australia's most influential buyers and fashion ambassadors abroad, travelling regularly to Paris and Milan to bring the best of global style to the domestic market. As a champion of Australian fashion and independent businesses, Eva has mentored emerging designers and students, judged major industry awards, led philanthropic endeavours, and remains a driving force in shaping the future of fashion in Australia. During our chat, Eva and I dived into how she identified a clear gap in the Australian market and launched Parlour X with a bold, instinct-led vision, what it takes to build a globally recognised boutique that blends commercial success with creative integrity, Eva's approach to brand curation and why resisting sameness is essential for long-term relevance, how to create an exceptional customer experience and why emotional connection, service and space matter more than ever. The importance of trusting your gut combined with data when it comes to buying, visual merchandising and retail strategy, even as trends and technologies shift. Lessons from over 20 years of navigating the highs, lows, and evolution of luxury fashion, and Eva's advice for staying original, resilient, and deeply committed to your own path, no matter the noise around you. Eva is a true icon of Australian fashion and retail. This was such an insightful and thought-provoking conversation. I enjoyed every minute of my time with Eva, and I know you will too. So let's dive in. Eva, welcome to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Can't wait to dive into all things Parlour X today. We're going to start with winding back the clock. Eva, I would love for you to take us back to the beginning and share when you opened Parlour X way back in 2001, what was your vision for luxury fashion in Australia?
Okay, so let's go back 1,000 years. At the time, I was a wholesale agent and I had worked abroad for many years. And I came back to Australia and I worked as a wholesale agent for 5 years here. And it felt like the natural progression for me. So, after many years of working with retailers, I decided to become a retailer. And I felt that the experience that I had had would help me carve a future in retailing. And to be honest with you, I think it really did. And I still believe that many of the principles from wholesaling to retailing, which is quite an unusual shift, it often happens the other way around, has stuck with me and is incremental in the way that I think about things. At that time in Australia, there were only a few luxury multi-brand retailers, and most of them were retailing the most obvious of the brand names. And it was a moment where contemporary was a new thing, and London was absolutely like just paving the way towards truly creative and cool, edgy fashion more than any other city. And I'd worked in London for many years in the recent years. So I had contacts there and I thought, what, I want to bring these brands to Australia. And I took myself to London Fashion Week. And the very first brand that I bought for Parlour X was Vivienne Westwood. And it's still one of my most favorite brands that I represent and partner with today.
It stood the test of time.
It certainly did.
As Parlour X has, because we've been through quite the transformation in retail. I'd love for you to describe, Eva, your retail store. It's more than a store, but I think let's just set the scene from the visuals. It's been a couple of years since I've been into your store, but I remember the very first time, which was many, many years ago, it was just the wow factor. I wasn't even looking at the clothes initially. I walked in the door and I'm just like, wow, wow, with the architecture of the amazing building that you're in. So perhaps try and describe that for those who are tuning in on the audio.
Absolutely. Well, we have been in the church for almost 10 years. Before that, for 14 years. So I should say we've actually been in the church for 10 years. And for 14 years before that, we were in a beautiful Victorian terrace in Five Ways, which is a part of Paddington, which is surrounded by art galleries. And it's a little bit off the beaten track. So very much a destination area with beautiful cafes and has a bit of a European feel. So we were there for 14 years and we moved to the church on Oxford Street 10 years ago. And it really is an extraordinary space. A very close friend of mine who is an architect worked together very closely to design and to bring to life the Parlour X today, and pretty much all of our clients know it today as well. So it has quite a contemporary feel internally, but it's a 200-year-old church.
It's just phenomenal. What a place to work. It's just what an environment and what an experience for your customers. So you've built Parlour X into a globally recognised destination. No doubt there's been many iterations over the journey. I'd love for you to take us through. You've mentioned already what sets you apart, and I'm sure there's much more to dive into, but how has the retail format and the strategy evolved over all of these years?
I mean, yeah, I did mention what sets it apart, but I guess for me, in terms of retail strategy and what really does set Parlour X aside is it's a little bit abstract because it really is about my emotional desire to be different and original and unique. And I think often when people create businesses, they look towards other businesses and they think, let me emulate that, or they look at other successes and think I can mold that and change that and make that my own. And I think for me, I have never wanted to do what anybody else does. Now, in saying that, obviously, there's been retailing for many, many years. So that's not new and different. But how you retail can be very, very different. The nature of retailing can be different. And so for me, the curation of the brands, knowing who my loyal clients are, and offering them exemplary service in an extraordinary, unparalleled space, they're the big key ingredients that goes into Parlour X's point of difference. And I think in terms of the strategy over time that it has evolved, the evolution is more about time and the industry that has changed around me more than Parlour X changing. In fact, in a huge way. So we still have similar modes of operation to what we did 10, 20 years ago. So as an example, when you walk into Parlour X, all of the brands are still mixed. And about 10 years ago, through department stores, because a lot of the department stores started doing concessions, so a lot of the brands had to be separated. And then you required a visual merchandiser, and I'm a trained merchandiser. And so that was quite complicated. So to cut costs, it was just easier to separate all the brands, and so they could have their own brand identity. And so within Parlour X, the curation is still very much part of the business. And even though, yes, of course, the brands must speak for themselves and have their own identity, but they have their own identity within the context of Parlour X. So presenting it as a very unique, curated collection whereby people aren't necessarily wearing total looks just from one brand, and they're mixing the different brands, and we're helping them and showing them how they can do that. That's the fact that we have remained in that context is a bit of a point of difference and a strategy that we've actually maintained.
Because everything starts to look the same is what we notice at times across retail, and that's
Mhm.
certainly not the case when you walk into your store. Who is doing the merchandising? Are you leading that? Have you trained your key staff members up to? Is there someone specifically on the team that has a flair when it comes to the merchandising?
Well, the answer is all of the above. So I'm still very much involved. I love visual merchandising. I was actually, funny enough, trained by Giorgio Armani when I was in my early 20s, and I lived in London, and I went to Italy on quite a few weekends doing workshops. And so it's a great passion of mine. I really love it. And over the years, I have trained a few different members of the team who show a natural flair and natural aptitude for visual merchandising. And together, we work quite closely. But yes, I'm still very involved. I can't help it because I also enjoy it. So I definitely have passed those reins over, and I definitely have some phenomenal team members who are extraordinary and have, wonderful sense of color and composition, and can, contrast and put things together. But yeah, I still lend a hand when I can.
I think that's something that you really want to hold on to, isn't it, as a
Yeah,
retailer? That's the DNA, that's the point of difference. You don't want to look like everyone else. You want, and as you said, you're
exactly.
putting so much effort into the merchandising and the coordination of the way that the brands kind of sit together.
Yes,
And no doubt you're aligning that, knowing the customers that are walking in that you've been serving for many, many years and the ways that they like to shop.
exactly.
It really
It
is.
also comes down to the buy. So at the end of the day, I'm buying quite a few different collections and brands. And when I create these purchase orders, we look at the purchase orders and we see how they all mesh together. So I might think of a particular color palette for the season, and I might focus, let's say, on Bordeaux and a cobalt blue and maybe an emerald green. And then I have to think about how that's going to visually merchandise and how all the different pieces all go together, especially if there's prints, or whether it's a geometric print or a floral print, and think about all the different ways the colors can visually merchandise together. So the visual merchandising of the boutique goes very much hand in hand with the buying strategy.
Buying. Let's dive into the buying. No
Sure.
doubt everyone will be very keen to hear about your methodology. I mean, you are one of Australia's most influential buyers, and you're still traveling overseas regularly, where a lot lot of other brands and retailers have really pulled back from, venturing out. They're doing a lot of things digitally, which changes again the
Mhm.
aesthetics and the
Yes,
DNA.
it does.
So how are you curating your collections? What goes into selecting the right brands and the right pieces season after season?
Okay, well, I'm not going to lie. There is a formula, but again, it's abstract because it's instinctual for me and it is based on experience. So, sure, I can rattle off different strategies and I will. But at the end of the day, so much of it is instinctual. And also because over the many years of our existence, we have clients that have been with us for 2 decades, over 2 decades, who we are very close to, that we have built incredible relationships with. And so I often buy with a lot of my key core clients in mind. I think a lot of buyers make the mistake of buying for a fantasy client who they think the client is. I
Mm,
have never done that. I've always bought with very specific clients in mind. I also buy a broad range of aesthetics in the brands that I buy. So some could be very structured and tailored, and others could be print heavy, or maybe have a slight print slash kind of bohemian flavor, or some of them are very avant-garde and very, very creative, like a Comme des Garçons or a
mm,
Maison Margiela that's very deconstructed and intellectual. And so they all have very different brand aesthetics and very different feels. And we cater to quite a broad, variety of different clientele who have different occupations or who have different interests and focus or what have you. And so I guess from collecting so many clients over the years and understanding all of their different needs and what their interests are, it's years and years worth of a collective mindset. It's like a Rolodex going on in my
mhm,
brain, with different clients and, who've been there since the beginning, who, even though I don't always personally serve, I'm still very much in touch with them. And we have feedback. Sometimes if they are around and I happen to be around, I'll always say hello. And I'd love to serve them if I could. There's a lot of data that's collected, but it's real data. It's based on real people. It's based on real experiences. And I think sometimes, especially in fashion, there's a lot of hypotheticals and a lot of guessing. I don't really work that way. So for me, it's never based on guessing. It really is based on experiences.
I love that, the real customer in mind, because yeah, you're right. Often it's an amateur avatar or a semi-fictional, idea of who
Mhm.
your customer is.
Mm.
So, how else do you keep connected with the customer if you're not seeing them physically in the store? Obviously, you're seeing the orders and the purchasing patterns over time, but do you do customer surveys? Are you doing events where your customers get to share their feedback in real time? How are you keeping that data fresh and current?
Well, a lot of our clients that have been shopping with us for, decades or a decade or quite a few years, they have made themselves very much known to myself, or they're identified depending on how regular they are, and then they have very solid relationships with key members of our team. And so
Yeah.
we'll have a CRM meeting and we'll talk about, client relationship management, and we'll talk about different clients and their desires and their needs. And these relationships that the clients have with some of our team members, and some of them are personally with me. I'm very close. I mean, some of my clients have been shopping with me for 25 years. We've seen ups and downs, and we've experienced having children together, moving cities, changing jobs, like major, major life changes. And so some of these relationships are transported to different members of the team. And when they come in and they're having a shop, they're also sharing and they're updating. And maybe they haven't seen each other for a few months, or maybe they saw each other a few weeks ago, and they're talking about events they're going to. They're talking about cities they're traveling to. They're sharing their life. And when they're sharing their life, they're also sharing what they like and what they don't like, what interests them, what doesn't interest them. And I mean, we're talking a few decades with some of these clients. I mean, we've evolved, we've changed, we're in different stages of our life.
Yeah.
So a lot of the communication is very much fed through, via the different, senior sales consultants who have these relationships, and also some of it is still very personal. So
Yeah.
every now and again, some of the clients that will text me and say, "Look, I've
Yeah.
got something coming up," or "Do you remember when I bought that?" And I love it. I mean, I love that personal contact. I consider a lot
Yeah.
of my clients my friends now.
Yeah, I think that's the gold in business, isn't it? Having that close connection to your
Mm.
customer. How have you seen customer expectations change over time? Like, are there any key trends or behavioral shifts that you're seeing in recent years or recent times?
For me, no. I mean, I do think that in general, in the fashion industry, because the fashion industry itself is changing at a rapid pace, definitely there are changes in consumer spending
Yeah.
and thought processes around consumer spending. However, for me, for Parlour X, the shifts are not as dramatic because, because I do have my ear to the ground and because I am so much in touch with the clients and I've never had that mindset of sitting in an ivory tower, so to speak. I'm very much constantly aiming to provide what my clients need and want and what they're asking for. And I never do that compromising my own creativity and my own desire and view for the business.
Yeah.
But they usually go hand in hand. They're never obscure. They're never, separated. It really is an evolution that we've all gone through together. And the interesting thing is as well, I mean, Parlour X is almost 25 years old. So imagine how I've grown up with my business and same with my clients. We've all grown up together and we've all evolved together and we kind of in a similar generation. So of course I will still sell, Parlour X sells a lot of beautiful different styles, especially Westwood, because it's having such a massive renaissance
Yeah.
to a lot of young people. But still, the bulk of our really close clients, I mean, we have men too, but they're people that have a very strong sense of identity and sense of self. We stock bold pieces and avant garde pieces and creative pieces that are for confident people who have a sense of maturity and an evolved sense of style. So I think because I've always offered that same mindset and that same collection of creativity. When I say the same, I mean it's obviously an evolution but what I mean is because, for example, we never went into that minimalist phase.
Mm,
It's minimalism is never something that I've ever bought into. It's not something that I personally love. I mean, of course, there's aspects of minimalism that you can't not enjoy a beautiful black blazer and put that with something. But basic dressing has never been of interest to me, and it's never been the direction that Parlour X has ever taken.
mm,
So, in saying that, every collection that we stock that has some sort of signature theme each season that the creative director is emulating and showcasing, I pretty much buy some of the key highlight pieces that represents that theme really well. So the clients feel as if they have newness and freshness constantly. It's not always the same. So the offering is evolving and the offering is changing, but it's still to the same person. It's just with
mm.
a sense of freshness and newness. And so I think that's why they keep coming back. And I'm sure the day that I lose track, they won't come back. But I don't think I can lose track because I think it's inherently who I am and what I do.
Yeah. Are you finding any demands around sustainability, conscious fashion? Obviously, luxury is an investment anyway.
Exactly.
It's investment pieces that have longevity in your wardrobe for years to come. But has there been any shifts around, wanting more conscious fabrics, wanting to know about supply chain transparency, any of those things?
Look, I think all of our clients, to a certain extent, are interested and have a focus on sustainability in terms of community, in terms of recycling. And when I say that, I think everything that we stock is of such supreme, beautiful craftsmanship and quality that you can pull out items that you have owned, as I know I do quite often,
Yeah.
for 10 and 20 years. And they still look fresh and brand new, and that in its own right is sustainability. The fact that these garments don't disintegrate or that they haven't ended up in landfill, or in my case and many other people's cases, will end up in their, children's or
Yeah.
nieces or nephews' wardrobes.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, we're not flogging frocks. This
Mm.
isn't fast fashion. And so the concept of sustainability goes hand in hand. And it also comes down to, like, when you think about production, these are not garments that are made in a sweatshop.
Yeah.
We're not sitting here thinking that the employees are potentially being paid nothing or are being robbed or are being mistreated. These are brands that have conscience and are well known, and even the ones that aren't, or that are up and coming, they all have, to some varying degrees, they all have a conscious attitude towards their production and their production cycles too. So I wouldn't say that this is the number one modus operandi, but it definitely is a talking point, and it definitely is something that is prevalent.
Mm. Well, what are some of the strongest brands in your portfolio? You've mentioned a few of them. Like, what are some between international and Australian brands?
So, well, Alaya, Maison Alaya is one of the first brands that I had bought for Parlour X a few years into first launching. And that is a brand that we've had exclusively for almost 25 years.
Yeah.
Same with Comme des Garçons. So it's the Japanese brand that it's a huge umbrella house that also has different lines from Junya Watanabe to, noir or black, or so there's quite a few different lines under the Maison of Comme des Garçons. So these are brands that I've actually been working with for over 20 years. I have incredible relationships with their teams. We've been through a lot together, and I see them 4 times a year, and it's quite a concentrated meeting. So sometimes I don't see some good friends for 4 times a year.
Yeah.
So, these are really beautiful relationships that I really cherish, and they're partnerships, and we work really well together. So, Westwood, Alaya, Comme des Garçons. There's also Sakai, which is also from Japan, that we work really closely with, and it's a really important brand in our collection as well. Margiela. So Maison Margiela is very important. We've also worked with them for over 20 years. There's Dries Van Noten is another. It's a brand that is such a favorite for so many people because the creativity and the prints and the bohemian edge. It's a brand that we work really closely with and also have a very close relationship with their team. In fact, I'm going to Antwerp after Paris to visit because I've never done that. It's been on my bucket list for such a long time. So there's obviously a lot more, Nina Ricci, we have that exclusively in Australia as well. There are far more brands that we stock. But these brands that I'm mentioning, they don't have mono brands in Australia.
Mm.
We are pretty much their representation, and the partnerships are very much a two-way street. And we've had highs and lows, and we've had COVID, and we've had recessions. So it's really important when you have these relationships to make sure that we're all always on the same page. And they're demanding. There's a lot of questions, and
Yeah.
so yeah, these are some of the brands in our portfolio.
And that's what makes Parlour X such a destination, right? It's
Yeah.
just it's that curation, that point of difference, that uniqueness. How many new customers are discovering Parlour X? Because you've spoken a lot about, the customers have been with you for many, many years. What about the new customers that are coming across Parlour X and
Well, great
discovering?
question. No,
Yeah.
no, really great question. Interestingly enough, a lot. So I get curious too because we've been around for 25 years. So if somebody is based in Sydney and they're coming in for the very first time, I'm curious. Why
Yeah.
now? I mean, have you only just discovered us now, or did you discover us a long time ago, but you've only just made it to Paddington now? Like, it's a great question, and it's something that we ask our clients as well. I mean, look, especially as I said, like certain brands have renaissances, and
Yeah.
Alaya is one of them, and so is Westwood. So for a few years there, the desire wasn't as big for these particular brands as they were for other brands in our portfolio that we were selling faster and quicker and at a more rapid pace. So sometimes the cyclical effect and also the change in creative direction, or in Vivienne Westwood's case, her passing, the commemoration of her passing, and the reality check as well, that because what we do, it's not just that it's luxury fashion, it's also very directional fashion. You can have luxury fashion and it can be a beautiful brand that has beautiful quality and craftsmanship. It's not necessarily from a design perspective, cutting edge or what have you. And pretty much Parlour X is very much about representing what we believe is the most cutting edge. And I guess Vivienne Westwood in particular, what makes it such a fabulous brand, and especially in this particular moment. So in the same way that trends come in and out and focuses come in and out, we've had a period over the last decade, not so much in the last few years since that minimalist took effect as a backlash to the extreme logoism, which I might just add, we never bought too far into that because it's not really what we did either. But there was a lot of status shopping and a lot of people really buying into brands because it wasn't necessarily because of the creativity and craftsmanship. It had other, there were other agendas and what have you. And I guess Vivienne Westwood is a brand that has the symbol of the globe. And we know that she was one of the greatest pioneers ever, and especially in the fashion industry, for the environment and for social change and anything that had any element of injustice. She was a massive mouthpiece and she really pushed that hard. And that woman warrior resonates in all of us, especially in this day and age. And when she passed away, there were so many tributes. And I mention logos because you see her logo and the Westwood logo, when you see that or when you wear that, it's a badge of honor. And it's not about status that's to do with money. It's about the perception that the world matters, that her political perspective matters. It means something different that defies the vulgarity of it being just about money. And so it's having a renaissance. People are wearing beautiful globes around, I mean, we have clients that are coming in that are normally luxury shoppers that could be wearing diamonds head to toe, but they're buying their Vivienne Westwood pearl necklaces and their pendants and what have you, and they're teaming it up because it's cool, because what she represents and what the brand represents is cool, and because those designs has stood the test of time. You could pull out old Westwood from 20 years ago and there's similar silhouettes and shapes, and the focus has been true to itself. It hasn't evolved into something else entirely. And I think that really resonates with a lot of people. And the fact of the matter is there's this brand new generation. I've got a 16-year-old daughter who loves Vivienne Westwood and loves her necklace. And so the people that are now coming in looking for Westwood are brand new shoppers. They didn't necessarily grow up knowing what a liar is or grow up knowing Comme des Garçons, but now they're suddenly knowing about Westwood because, it's infiltrated their community and their psyche, and it's something that is interesting to them. So we don't just receive the new young people, we receive people of all ages, but it really depends on the brands, and sometimes it's a brand focused thing.
Yeah, so that's the new customer coming in. They find that you've got something that you just can't get elsewhere. And as you said, with brands like Vivienne Westwood, you are wearing your values. Like as you said, it is a true extension of your personal identity.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that. Can I ask, what's your personal style? What are some of the brands that you love to wear, Eva?
Oh, that's a great question. What's really interesting is I've spent my life for 25 years buying so many different collections and brands, and I don't always buy brands that are my personal style and taste.
Yeah.
However, in saying that, it's the same. If I look at a wonderful woman or man walking past, I might not necessarily want to own or look like them, but I can look at them and think that they look fantastic. It's like when you go to an art gallery and you love the art, but you're not necessarily thinking you'd like to hang it in your own wall. So I sometimes feel guilty when I say what my favorites are, because I feel as though I'm betraying all the others because I love them. But I'll tell you what's interesting. I have, in recent years, I've made a lot of changes to Parlour X. And as I have evolved and gotten to a certain stage and age in life, I have decided to stock all of the collections and brands that I personally love. So I have filtered through, and we've stopped working with quite a few brands and collections, not because they weren't necessarily doing well, but because at this stage of my life, I've decided to stock all the brands that I personally love and will wear. So I have to say we've reduced and narrowed our brand portfolio right down. So, I mean, Comme des Garçons is probably something I have the most in my wardrobe alongside Dries Van Noten. Sakai is another one that I have a lot, a Margiela. So, I mean, all the ones that I've mentioned so far. A new brand that I'm loving at the moment is called Awake Mode. It's quite quirky and avant-garde and cool. And Nina Rishi, Rabanne, Mugler is another one. I mean, that might be a little bit on the sexy side for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love femininity, and I do like wearing things that are a little bit sexy, but it's not my modus operandi. Like, I sometimes wear very oversized fashion. I've always worn oversized fashion since I was a teenager. I'm
Yeah.
quite petite, but I like things looking giant. It's kind of cool and fun and mysterious in a way, and I like that mystery that fashion can offer. So yeah, I have to say the brand portfolio that we stock at the moment is my favorite brand portfolio that I've ever had for Parlour X. And I pretty much would wear almost everything that we have in boutique at the moment.
I absolutely love that. I love that your brand portfolio has evolved with your own personal style and stage of life. Well,
Yeah.
we'll all be checking that out. I think I've just got inspired by all those brands you reeled off then. I need to do a shop. Now, I'd love to talk about digital transformation. Obviously, you've got your beautiful store. It's
Mhm,
a destination, not just here in
mhm,
Australia, but
mhm.
people coming from all over the world.
Yeah.
But let's talk about online. How have you pivoted and grown in the digital landscape over time? And what are some of the real benefits that it's brought to your business? And what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome?
I'm probably going to share something with you that you may not have realized, but we have had digital and online for 16 years, actually more. Pre COVID, I could say hand on heart that we were the only bricks and clicks luxury multi brand in the whole of Australia.
Mm.
And during COVID, obviously, everyone had to immediately rush to create their online. So that was actually really important and a really big, important moment for all retailers all over the world. But we were already very established at that stage. So COVID was really interesting for us because we had already made a lot of those mistakes and the trials and tribulations of starting e-commerce. We did that. I'd have to, it's 17 years that we created that. So we have an established online business, and love that business. I'm very proud of that business. We try our hardest to offer the service online that we possibly can offer it in boutique. However, you can't really click onto being in a space of a church, but it just our photography, our model, our styling, our offering online, I have to say I'm very proud of. And we also offer a lot of direct communication to any clients who need to ask questions about fits. The ecom team spend a lot of time adding as many notes as they possibly can about the fits and the styles and the fabrications, so that, yeah, we can provide this really wonderful 360 degrees experience online as what we do in boutique. And because we are a physical boutique, you can contact us. The people on the other end are going to be salespeople, so they're incredibly well rehearsed and educated when it comes to brand knowledge, product knowledge, especially as well when it comes to making recommendations for all different people's bodies, shapes and sizes and colors and skin tones. And its service is right up there with what we do best. And so we try to, transport that same experience that you can have in person, via an online channel or via the phone or email or whatever it is that needs to happen in that regard.
Mm. I was surprised by 16 years. I'm sure everyone tuning in is. So you were
Mhm.
certainly ahead of the game. As you said, when COVID hit, there was a lot of retailers scrambling to get
Mm.
up online. And obviously, you already had a mature business, which is amazing. So is that all managed with an internal team, Eva? Or
Mhm.
is it, yeah, it's
Yeah,
all,
we have a few external members,
yeah,
so we do have different team members that live in different countries.
yeah.
But all the managers and the people that are most focused are all based in Sydney
Yeah.
with us
And
in the church.
and have you found the e-com landscape, therefore, since you've been in it for such a long time, now sitting here, in 2025, what have been some of the key strategies online that you've had to keep up with, perhaps from an innovation, technology, AI coming down the pipeline at us? Is there anything that kind of stands out that you've felt has really helped you to keep, top of your game in the e-com space?
Well, look, I'm really lucky because I personally founded Parlour X in 2001. But my life partner, who I share my life with, he is a digital expert.
Mm.
So yeah, so many years ago, he used to build websites. So we run that together,
Mm.
and I have the added benefit of him being as capable as he is. So fortunately, it's something that we can divide and conquer as well. So all the dev side of that business, so all the development side of that business, is pretty much down to him. He's forever upskilling. He's a pro with AI. And so we have our finger on the pulse with all latest technology, and all of the latest digital advancements that are on offer. He's forever testing, he's forever trialing. And so that's what's enabled our online business to have such a strong presence and to do so well for us. And I think it's because I'm able to partner with him in that respect. And he really is that good at what he does. So it helps.
Pretty valuable having a life
Mm.
partner that's an expert in that space. So you've got
Exactly.
the two great minds coming together.
Mm.
So what's your biggest market with online? So I'm sure, obviously you're based in
Australia.
Sydney, yes, but
Oh,
is
oh.
it state-wise, like who's the biggest market outside of
Oh,
New South Wales?
well, no, Victoria for sure. I
Yeah,
mean, Melbourne people have always traditionally loved the buying style of Parlour X. So many
yeah.
people constantly ask me if I'm a Melbourneian, and I take that as a compliment because I'm old enough to remember when Melbourne was paving the way as the cultural capital of Australia, and obviously to some degree probably still is. And I say that not necessarily because you have more boutiques or things like that. You don't. We probably do, but if you go down to Melbourne and you hang out in the different suburbs, and I've got some best friends in Melbourne and I love coming to Melbourne. You go to great restaurants and you go to different locations. People are chic. I mean, people look good. People know how to dress, and people are influenced by culture and love culture. And maybe it's because so many of the Melbourneians originally were European, and there is such an emphasis that's placed on loving beautiful style and taste and culture. So, yeah, we have a lot of wonderfully faithful and loyal Melbourne customers who come and visit us regularly, or who also shop online and reach out, and we have wonderful relationships with. And I think because we do have kind of a quirky and interesting mix of brands, Melbourne people seem to be very adventurous and love fashion, and it's a really important market for us.
Yeah, yeah.
But I say
So
that, but we also Western Australia is pretty good too, coming up
yeah,
there.
I was going to ask who's kind
Yeah.
of who's coming up behind.
Yeah,
That's
Western Australia. So, I
yeah,
mean, Queensland too, I have to
yeah,
say, but Western Australia is really strong for us. People that love fashion there too. But in saying that, Queensland. So yeah, ACT, Canberra's been really strong for us as well. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think because what we do is quite unique, and in within the Australian context, even globally, like we sell quite well with the Americas. I think it's because they can be quite conservative, and maybe the buying style of other people sometimes plays it safe, or they buy a lot of basics
yeah.
and we buy more avant-garde. So maybe there's a bit more of a reason to shop because they're finding items that they don't already have in their wardrobe, and there's a reason to buy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's shift back into the online experience. So, sorry, into the in-store experience. So, what is the experience like? So, can you come into Parlour X for a styling session? Is it something you have to book in for? Just want to get a bit of a feel of the ambience in store and what people would expect.
Well, it's both.
Mm.
So we have a lot of clients that, and especially our regular clients who make appointments.
Yeah.
It's always easy to make an appointment because then that way you have a designated member of the team, and if you are a regular, you have your favorite that you want to have that appointment with. So
Yeah.
that's always easy, and that's we prefer that. It's easy too because then that way we can provide the full experience.
Yeah.
Because in case you're coming in on a day that we happen to be busy, sometimes it's difficult to divide time and to give that level of devotion that you can provide when you're having a scheduled appointment. But of course, you can walk in at any time, and and be treated like precious client that you are, because clients are precious, and servicing very seriously. I have been in retail my entire life since I was 14 and 9 months. And yes, way back then, it was still 14 and 9 months, which was the, earliest day that you could get a job. And literally on my birthday, I went out there hunting for a job. And so I've been in retailing my entire life. And yeah, service is the most important thing in terms of training,
Yeah.
and just ensuring that the type of service that we can provide is matching the luxury products that we have. And I'm old school in that way. I was trained in London by some of the best, and I brought that philosophy back to our specific location, and everybody who works within the Parlour X umbrella knows that service is number one, clients is number one. And so, yeah, it's very important to us to make sure that the service that we provide is unparalleled.
Amazing. And how have you been able to replicate that online? So can I book in for a styling session? How would I go about
Sure.
it if I'm
Yeah,
in another
absolutely.
state?
Absolutely. So if you wanted to have contact with one of our special um, consultants, you could definitely book that in. And sometimes you don't even need to book that in, but other times, depending on who's around and how busy they are or whether they have other appointments, it's always better to book in. But yes, you could have someone's undivided attention. They will try things on themselves. They'll get a really good gauge as to who you are, what your preferences are, what you like about what you like in garments, what you don't like in accessories, what colors you prefer, what are some of the foibles or aspects of your body that you prefer to not show, and what are the ones that you're happy to show. And so there's a massive series of questions that are asked, so we can ascertain and understand clients' needs, and then so that we can offer as many different choices as possible to make sure that the client is making the most informed and best decision for themselves.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you've been able to replicate that experience online. I think it's so important. What's coming to mind right now is I'd love for you to replicate the physical online. And I think with AI
Yeah, yeah,
shifting as quickly as
yeah,
it is, basically changing daily, I feel like we're somehow going to be able to log on and be transported to
yeah.
your beautiful in store experience. I don't think it's that far off, Eva.
Oh, I think you're right. So, and I'm looking forward to that as well, because having another evolution or having things like that to look forward to is quite exciting.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So if you were to zoom out and look at the retail and the wholesale landscape here in Australia, and I asked you to take its pulse, what would your diagnosis be?
The world and Australia is in a recession. There's no question. Okay, so we are, and cost of living. I mean, look, we've just had an election. Okay, so for those who are interested in politics, and pretty much everyone in my orbit is,
Mm.
we've analysed everything. We've seen it. We've heard every angle that could possibly be communicated, and it seems the number one overriding issue for everyone is cost of living. And the fact that there are rising costs, so if you apply to your own home living situation and apply that to retail, everything is going up. So all the rates from heating, like everything, all the amenities, everything is costing more. And it looks like it's continuing to cost more. It doesn't look like it's being curbed anytime soon. So imagine running a business when the costs are just constantly going up. But imagine running a business where you cannot pass those costs onto the client. You have to absorb that. And when you're in multi-brand luxury retailing and you buy other brands, it's not your own brand, you cannot pass that cost on to the client. So what does that mean? It literally means our margins are shrinking. And that is very difficult. And in saying that, over the last, I don't know, 6 months or so, a lot of multi brand retailers in Australia have stopped operating.
Mm.
And it's sad. And if you look at our major department stores, they've shrunk their footprint. So this is the landscape that we're in. I'm not negative though. Like everything is cyclical. So as long as
Yep.
you can ride what's happening, and get to the other side, it'll be okay. But you've got to make sure that you can get to the other side, and you have to make sure that you can make enough margin to be able to continue operating. So
Yeah.
I've still got lots of little tricks in my bag, lots of different ideas around how to continue to thrive and how to remain successful and how to ensure that we ride through this period as best as possible. And hopefully that will all work out. But there's unfortunately, yeah, there's been some bleak moments. I don't think that's over. I still
Mm.
think that there's going to be a little bit more, a few more changes ahead. We've recognized what the issues are, but no one's recognized how they're going to tackle them. And when I say they, I probably mean the government, but this is global. Rising costs everywhere. I mean, I can only really speak for my own country. Everyone's acknowledging what it is. That's not the issue, but no one's necessarily coming out with outcomes that look
Yeah.
like they're going to resolve it anywhere in a hurry, let alone at all. I think this is going to be a work in progress, and we just have to ride it out, and we have to kind of hope for the best. And I think if I can make one point, I wish that there would be more acknowledgement for small to medium sized businesses. So, we fit into that category. And without us, without businesses, there's no economy. We need to employ people, we need sales, and we need to provide services. And that's what makes the economy go round. And so there needs to be some more appreciation and probably a little bit more work into making sure that small to business size companies can stay afloat, because there's been statistics of lots of people having to go out of operations. And we want to be able to influence the younger generations and tell them when they want to start their own business. We want to give them encouragement, and we want to show them how they can do that. So we need to move forward with this, and I think we need to have some acknowledgement as to ensuring that small to medium sized businesses can stay afloat during these hard times. And I think that needs to be a focus. And I don't feel like I hear very much around that. And I think
No.
that needs to be spoken about, because we're needed. We're needed. If we don't exist, how are people going to get jobs? And it's really important. And if the fashion industry is kind of shrinking, and if multi-brand retailers are shrinking, where are people going to get their jobs? How are they
Yeah.
going to be? And if you're looking at all the people in colleges, there's growth in the number of fashion degrees and fashion courses. But where are they going to
Where
work
are they?
if the small and medium sized businesses don't exist? So I
Yeah.
think there does need to be a little bit more of a focus on businesses and ensuring that these businesses are operating effectively, so we can employ as many people as possible, and so that we can make the economy go round and round, and so that we can all benefit from what that entails.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Now, I can't keep going without diving a little bit deeper into, you mentioned you've got some tricks and some tools on how to mitigate. I'm sure our listeners are like, ask her what they are. What are they? So, for all of those retailers that are, or brands tuning in, whether it's their own brand or
Yeah,
they're a multi-brand retailer, and perhaps, they're not 24, 25 years into it. They're
yeah,
perhaps, a few years into this journey. And it is very difficult when you're a business owner who hasn't been through a period of
that's
crisis
true.
or economic hardship before. We saw that
Yeah,
during COVID.
yeah,
So, is there anything that you can share? What comes to
yeah,
mind at the moment is I'm thinking
okay.
about margin. Are you with your brand partners? Are they sharing a little bit of the load here? Are you negotiating through these tough times? What are you open to sharing?
I love your questions because they're so well researched, because it's you really know what you're talking about, and I actually really value that hugely. Well, yes. Another reason why I did reduce our brand portfolio was, one, so that we could have concentrated focuses of each brand and represent them to their max, and also so that I could retail brands that personally align. But it was also because of the relationships, so that we could secure and strengthen and deepen our relationships, so that we can have these difficult conversations, and especially when there are difficult moments. So COVID was like, I don't know, 5 years ago, but I've lived through the GFC, which was
Mm.
2008 through 2009. So we're almost 25 years old. We've seen some major trials and tribulations and some major ups and downs. I guess the best advice that I could give anyone who hasn't gone through hardship is, if you really believe in yourself and what you're doing, persevere. Don't give up during that period. There are lots of expressions and sayings about sometimes through the hardest times, that's when some businesses can flourish and do their best. And I think it goes down to what I was saying before about originality. Make sure that you have a unique point of view that sets you aside from everybody else. If you're doing what everybody else is doing, it's going to be difficult for you to thrive in a crowded market and thrive when there's no reason to listen to your voice. Have a clear voice. Know what your strengths are. Know what your weaknesses are. Make sure you play into them. You need to be confident. You need to trust your instincts. You need to know who your client is. So I go back to that many questions ago. That's very, very important. Narrow her or him down and be sure that he or she is a real human being. Don't try to be everything to everyone. Know who you want to target. Make sure that you target your aim, and don't too easily be led astray based on trends or different things that are happening in the market and go, oh, quick, I'm going to change and pivot to that because it looks like it's successful for somebody else, when it's not necessarily your strength. Play into your strengths. Use your experience, use your reporting, use your analysis, use everything, use all the tools that you already have to continue to grow and to continue to learn. And every failure, and it's so cliched what I'm saying, but it's so true. Every single failure is not really a failure when you learn from it. So it's impossible to run a business without taking risks. Impossible. Actually, I take that back. You can, but you're not really going to make very much money. If you want to be successful and make money that you can live from and that sustains your lifestyle, then you need to take risks, but you can take calculated and educated risks. They don't have to be risks like just some whim or like buying a lottery ticket. Use your experience, use the trials and tribulations, use all the trialing and testing, and see what works and see what doesn't work, and take what doesn't work as a case study for yourself and learn and grow from it. Because the growth from failures is actually sometimes better than the growth from successes.
There's the gold, everybody. I think we'll all be listening to that on repeat, Eva, and taking notes. Thank you. Thank you for
That's
sharing that. Now, Eva, who supports you? Your role is dynamic and no doubt demanding at times. What practices or routines or support systems do you have in place that help you to operate at a high level and help you with your mindset and well-being?
Great question. Another great question. Well, I do. I am lucky. I have a very, very, very supportive partner. He's really tentative, and he likes to look after me. He's very nurturing, and that helps me. And we do operate quite well together. But I have to say, apart from that, my group of girlfriends, and I've got quite a lot of girlfriends, are like family to me. I'm born and bred where I live. So I've got friendships from kindergarten that are still my best friends today. I've got friendships from primary school, from high school, from university, and all the way through to now. And I really, really cherish my friendships. So I make plans at least once a week to see either a group of my girlfriends or one or two of my girlfriends, and we just share. And we share, we purge, we talk about what's irking us, what's paining us, what's bothering us, but we also share and talk about what's exciting us, what wonderful things have happened, what we've achieved. And it's such raw, genuine, beautiful friendships that it's pure. We love each other. And so the advice that we're given or the comments that are made, they're always coming from the depth of the heart. And so I personally get so much nourishment from my friendships. It's incredible. I also have a very close family who also live nearby, and I don't take any of my relationships in my life, whether it's with my brother or my parents, I don't take them for granted. I hold them in with huge value. I try to do little walks here and there with my friends to get a bit of exercise in, but I have to say my friendships and my family are my lifeline.
That's beautiful. It sounds very grounding, Eva. I think good medicine, isn't it? Like, especially the time with
100%.
girlfriends. I know for me, I feel the same. And
Yeah,
it's such good medicine. You just come away inspired. You feel a bit lighter and ready to tackle the
100%.
world.
It's
So,
nourishment.
it is. I agree. That's a great word, nourishment. And we all need that really sound kind of ecosystem of
Mm.
support. No one can do what you're doing at this level alone. It does take a village. And what about the team in store in your business? Who are you surrounded by on the daily? Who are the key people that really are there for you?
I love that you've asked me this at this particular moment. I think this is one of my favorite teams I've had in 25 years. In saying that, I've had some wonderful people working with me. I had a few people that worked for me for over a decade who I adore, who when one of them got married, I sat next to her at her on the main table at her wedding, and I watched her and I watched another girl from work become best friends, and they now live down the coast with their children together. And so I love seeing members of my team find work and inspiration and a place where they feel nurtured to flourish in their lives. So it's important for me to feel as if the people that I'm working with are growing and evolving and upskilling. Um, and at the moment, I've got Ali, who she's kind of like my right arm, and she is wonderful. She started as an intern and she eventually became our e-com and marketing manager. And she's been with Parlour X, I think, 6 or 7 years, and now she's our buying planner. So she holds, the most senior role in the business, and she is, she's wonderful. I have so many. I have Taylor, I have Leah, and Missy, who's been there for years and years too, and Cassie, Lauren, Adelaide. I have a wonderful team, and I feel really inspired by the members of the team. And I've done something recently that I've never done before. And again, it kind of goes hand in hand with this evolution that I was talking about at the stage and age of my life and how I've evolved the brand portfolio. I've started to employ some of my very, very close friends' kids.
Wow.
And so I used to have a policy of never doing anything like that and not employing anybody I know, or I had a very different approach. And I've started, working with over the last little while, various different friends of mine, kids, and I am loving it because they're learning, they are evolving. I'm like so privileged to be part of that contribution to their future lives,
Mm.
and I've watched them grow up, and so who better than to pass on my knowledge to these children that I mean, they're not children, they're adults now, but, these adults that I have seen, and I love that. I didn't have that before, and I have that now. There's one girlfriend actually, over the years, there's been a few girlfriends here or there that in between their jobs, they've, other jobs and things like that have come to work for me, and that I've enjoyed that thoroughly as well. But yeah, now I'm going through something different with some of the younger ones that are coming through, and I'm really enjoying that.
I absolutely love that. It feels like
Mm,
a true like family environment when you've
mm,
got your friends' kids coming to work for you. What's next for Parlour X? Is there
mm.
anything, as if what you've shared isn't enough, is there anything coming down the pipeline that we can expect to see?
There is, but I can't really share it just yet.
Okay.
So you'll see. So we're always evolving, and
Yeah.
we always have plans to make some substantial changes here and there. Just because fashion evolves and fashion changes. And if you look at the world, there's something like 30 different new creative directors in the last 3 years. And a
Mm,
lot of them are the brands that I buy as well. So the world is changing at a rapid pace. So we need to keep evolving and changing in certain ways. And yes, so there are a few things on the horizon, but I think ultimately we're in this change phase right now. And as I mentioned, these creative directors, so there's quite a lot of creative directors that are directors that I've worked with in different brands, and now they're at another brand that I happen to buy, or brands that I buy now with new creative directors. And so there's an excitement around what's the brand aesthetic going to look like?
Yeah.
To what extent will the signature change? So I'm quite excited about that. And I think that's actually bigger than what people realize. The
Mm.
musical chairs of the luxury fashion industry has been monumental, and there's been so much noise about it. But now we have to see what that looks like in terms of the creativity and the designs and what that means and how the clients are going to respond to it. It's actually big.
Yeah.
But I'm quite excited because we have some of the really big ones either on board or coming on board. And so there'll be some big announcements around that very, very soon.
Well, we'll have to sit tight and watch this space in terms of that,
Absolutely.
in terms of what's next for Parlour X. So, Eva, finally, what excites you most about the future of fashion, both here in Australia and globally?
Creativity. I mean, I mentioned before about this minimalist phase that existed, which really is not something that I buy into very much. I mean, occasionally I will pare down my look, but I personally am not a minimalist person. I might have a big earring, like I might have clothes that look a bit minimalist, but
Yeah.
then I'll have some fabulous jewel or a pop colored shoe. Or I've never really been into bland dressing. I feel as if it's a uniform, and I've never, ever wanted to look at fashion as a uniform. I feel that's too homogenous and too it's too army, and like everyone has to fall into line. And I believe that fashion is about creativity and self-expression, and it's unique to the person who's wearing it and the person who is experiencing it. So bland fashion to me is your devaluing your personality and your shine. And look, the world's in a crazy place. Everybody knows that you'd have to be hiding under a rock to not realize that we're getting it from all angles. And there's some sort of new world order or something that's on the horizon that we don't even know, that we can't even see.
Mm.
And if we can tantalize our fantasies and our excitement around creativity and lose ourselves and drown out the noise with
Mm.
creativity and self-expression, and art and literature and architecture and music, we will be happier, because the noise around us that isn't always very pleasant is loud. So I think escapism is more important now than it ever was before. But escapism, on the one hand, with a very healthy dose of reality on the other hand, but to have that escapism as a tier that you can lose yourself into. And for me, I mean, I love all creative fields, so it's not just fashion, but fashion in particular, to me, and self-expression is one of the easiest forms of creativity that you can lose yourself into. And I think it's been around for a very long time. It's not going anywhere. And I think also what I'm excited about for the future is I think people have caught on now that status fashion, it's not cool. And I think people now are realizing that creativity, we have to go back to this, the golden age of creativity. And I say that because I believe that for the last 100 years, we've been so lucky to live in a day and age where creativity has been celebrated, and it's the zeitgeist. It's been the zeitgeist. And something really scary to me over the last 10 years was a feeling that it wasn't the zeitgeist anymore. And people were manipulating creativity for commercialism and money. And you can say that and say, but Eva, it makes no sense. You're monetizing the fashion because that's what you do, and you've got a boutique and it's about sales. And it's like, well, yes, because we have a livelihood that we have to meet. And
Yeah.
people have to attain these things. And getting back to what we were talking about before as well, in terms of recycling and sustainability, it has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there has to, and so if you can start at top level, in terms of the purchasing element, with creative, beautiful designs that can stand the test of time and be like art, appreciate over time instead of be devalued. And maybe now with kind of Bitcoin and crypto and kind of each item of clothing, maybe it was Raf Simons Dior, or was it Maria True? You know what I mean? And it's all going to
Yeah.
have its value and its place, and it will be like art, and it will be archived. So, I mean, I feel as if there's excitement around that. There's excitement around bringing creativity back to fashion, bringing creativity back as the zeitgeist for people, and also how technology can play into how we archive it, how we see it in the future, and where that will take it as well.
Mm. So interesting. I just think that's a very profound message to leave our listeners with. Thank you so much for sharing that point of view. Eva, Parlour X is an iconic Australian and globally recognised retailer. Thank you for joining me today. Congratulations to you and your team on everything you've achieved over many years. You've stood the test of time. So thank you for sharing some of the behind the scenes with our audience today. And we cannot wait to see what you do next.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for asking such clever and poignant questions that are really current and also really define where we're at right now. And I think they're very interesting questions. So, thank you. I've enjoyed myself.
Thanks, Eva. So have I. Loved every minute. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Fashion Business Mindset. We'd love to stay connected. Fashion Equipped is a leading Melbourne-based consultancy, partnering with fashion and lifestyle brands, retailers, wholesalers, and industry leaders globally. We specialise in strategic advisory, growth planning, and brand elevation, empowering fashion businesses to scale with confidence and impact. I invite you to head to fashionequipped.com.au to join our mailing list and receive the monthly edit, your go-to source for industry insights, business optimization strategies, and free trend reports. While you're there, explore our consulting services, our online learning and mentoring programs. We'd also love to connect on Instagram. You can follow us at Fashion Equipped and at Fashion Business Mindset for more industry insights and inspiration. We're here to help you navigate the business of fashion and take your brand to the next level.
This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose.